We're going live. Oh, apparently we're live. Okay, so welcome to Let's Talk Blogging Tips. Last week we left off with we started to go down the rabbit hole of SEO, and we had to pull it back because we were already well into what could have been a much longer talk. So this week, actually this time around, I am joined by my friend Patrick. Patrick, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello. My name is Patrick Wisniewski, and I am a storyteller, so I call myself, or try to be. Currently, I'm a graduate student at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, working a lot in the marketing department of auxiliary services there. So I make blog content, video content, social media content, but I also, on the side, do a lot of writing and YouTube content coming up, and lots of storytelling in different areas. And yeah, that's me. That's me in a little bit. So,
Patrick, how long have you been blogging for, off and on?
Off and on blogging, I want to say probably for about 7 years. I did a couple things in high school around that time, and really started majorly in college at certain points with various smaller blogs that I did a lot of posts of, went and did other things, stuff like that. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, again, I am Joe Pardo, and my name did not come up at the bottom, so there it is. Boom. So I'm Joe Pardo, and you can find all the stuff that I do at howtodream.co, which is down here, and joepardo.net to find out all the other awesome things I do, like Podcast Mid-Atlantic. I just came out my first book. You can get it in Kindle format, audiobook format on Audible or Amazon or iTunes. You can also get the physical copy like I had in my hand, all on Amazon. So check it out. It's a book for people who hate reading books. It was #1 on personal transformation. So
yes,
yay me. That was when it was free, and now we're trying to get it back up. So just call me the old man. Anyway, me personally, I've been blogging since like '96, off and on, several different blogs, doing several different topics and stuff like that. So there's a wealth of knowledge, especially between the two of us. But I would love for you, Patrick, to tell me what's been your major, things that have been going on for you as far as blogging.
As far as blogging, so the major thing right now is, like I said, I'm working for a campus department here. It's known here as auxiliary services, and what that means is that it's all the essential services to help the university operate. So we're kind of an umbrella branch with different departments in it. So we have like dining services, where you're going to get your stuff to eat, parking, how people park here, how you get a parking permit, mail, printing, etc. So I've dealt in those areas. So the marketing director that I work with, her name's Luann Lamb, is excellent at us coordinating blogging content to get out to students, because it's one of the best ways, and also for faculty content. And one of the big things we've had is to provide insight into those services that people don't think about or have questions about or communicate through social media. So I've had the opportunity to write a few blog posts on here, things that I didn't know about when I was an undergraduate student, and here I'm a graduate student, and focusing areas like that. Like I wrote, I believe it was a top 5 list was the first one I did, top 5 things I didn't know, doing learning stuff. Now, I wish I would know and give advice to people who are there. And then also with like parking and things like that, giving people a different perspective coming up on how to do that. We had a blood drive that we coordinate with, and I did a first-hand account of me giving blood through that event and stuff like that. So I've had those kind of opportunities is the major thing right now, and it's going to really expand as we go along in the future, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I mean, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
To that you're doing. Real quick, I just want to say hi. Hey, David. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
Why don't you introduce yourself for anybody who doesn't know who you are? And they
Sure,
should.
I'm David Michael from the Passionate DJ podcast and blog at passionatedj.com.
And yet again, in a different part of his house.
Well, it's a different angle this time. Last time I was facing this way.
Oh, okay.
Not as bad.
So your house is New Zealand. For anybody who doesn't know, New Zealand is awesome because you could face one way and then face a totally different way, and it looks completely different, and you could get two different shots just from standing in the same spot. Yeah, so glad you could join us, David. It's awesome to be in the presence of a blogging master.
I don't know about that, but I appreciate that. I might have to kind of mute and disappear for a few moments here as we got some stuff going on, but so I just wanted to forewarn you. I'll make sure and mute it before things get crazy and the dogs explode.
No problem, no problem. So
I need to go get my power adapters.
all right, go get your power adapter.
I saw your link on Facebook, and I was like, oh, crap, and I just clicked it, and it's like, battery, so.
So Patrick, what's some of the issues that you've had with blogging over the last recently?
Recently, also on the other side, because the position that I've talked about really hasn't had a lot of that. More like an audience thing, getting a hold of, because I'm in a new position, looking at where my audience is and how to communicate with the audience is one thing. But on the other hand, when I talked to you before the show, I've had a storytelling blog that I'm going to start up again soon. And that has done, it's been a lot of work with managing interviews I'm going to do and stuff that I want to do, but also getting that content up. When you get busy with other things, making your content, in scheduling out of here's what I'm going to post this day, here's what I'm going to post that day. So kind of two different areas with audience, and that have been the interesting things for me getting back into blogging, because I didn't do it for a long time. So
let's tackle them one at a time, right? Yeah. So it was scheduling content, right? Mm-hmm. And then the first one was coming up with content.
Communicating with your audience.
That's right. Finding where your audience is so that you can communicate with them, right? So in your case, it's with the college, right? So that's. Mm-hmm. Are you actually blogging on the college's website, or are you blogging?
We have our own website. We have .uncc.edu URLs. So through our college, it's an official university hosted site for auxiliary services. We have a blog area.
Are you able to get anybody from the school to email out to people that it exists?
Good question. Actually, we do. So far, my director communicates when they're first released to various people in our departments. A student perspective would be interesting getting out to. That's something I didn't think about through email, but yeah, I'm sure there is. That'd be a good idea.
Now, with that said, I was in class last night, and somebody had said that, oh, did you guys hear that there was a sexual harassment email sent out that we all have to complete some kind of form or something like that before we can continue to take classes? And I said, oh, was that sent by Cheryl McBride? And they said yes. I said, well, then it was probably deleted because she sends 8 emails a week, and I don't read any of them because I only take one night class, and that's all I care about is that one night class a week, a week. So it can be difficult, but at the same time, if you can get somebody in my case, Cheryl McBride, who's regularly sending out a newsletter of what's going on at the school, get her to put that link in there and see what happens. And I would suggest if you could have them link it as a Bitly link or some form of shortener. And the reason is because you could track it.
Right.
You could track how many people are actually clicking on that link coming from there. And that could help you figure out a lot whether or not it worked and whether or not you should continue to do it.
Right, for sure.
Especially, and I was going to say with the school, put up flyers because people are still walking around. They might have their heads down in the phones, but they're probably looking up to walk at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Great idea.
Dave, is there anything that you would like to contribute as far as finding your audience? I know within your case, it's global, so it's a little bit different, but
Yeah, sorry, having kind of missed the conversation up till now. I don't know what you've already covered. You're talking about just building an initial audience, or like starting out, or I don't know what stage we're talking about here.
well, Patrick, you had mentioned, how long have you been doing that blog for the school?
For the school, on and off since last summer. They haven't been like, we're really looking at starting to amp up our content. It's not like weekly, like, oh, here's this thing like on Wednesday. It's when it's geared towards certain times and positions that things. But I've been doing it for about a year in this position.
Yeah. What is your blog?
Well, I do. It is essential services for a school. It's called Auxiliary Services, and it's a section on the general website where you get information about how to, like, for meal plans and parking and things like that. And it has a blogging section, so they're kind of like editorials.
Okay.
In a newspaper sense, they're not necessarily like weekly things.
So your audience is contained within a specific school campus environment? Okay.
Yeah, it's a college.
Yeah, okay. Well, that is a little different. I guess I'd have to think about that a little bit. I've never really gave much thought about an inherently restricted audience.
Right. It's interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I started going down that path where I registered a domain called mydaytonjobs.com. I'm from Dayton, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
But I never ended up doing anything with it other than installing WordPress. So,
yeah. But on the other hand, like that, then that's just one kind of like the area I've done, and I'm going to do another one that's more global, that's not restricted. Like, just in your experience, like from an audience perspective, like if you were just starting out with a blog.
Well, I do think I can maybe address that a little bit. Are you trying to get so this is kind of like an information outlet for students of this school?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What age group is this? A college or high school?
Yeah. So yeah, it's a college. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Probably what I would attempt to do personally is to get them to physically sign up for a newsletter somehow, a digital newsletter. Right. That way you can collect email addresses. Because especially being some kind of campus environment, I assume there's a lot of events and things that you could probably get involved with to, even if you had to set up a table somewhere, talk about what it is you do and what the value is of them signing up for it. I kind of did something similar for Passionate DJ on a local level. I had a 1-year anniversary party a long time ago, and I set up a table. I had DJs playing and the whole normal event promotion thing going on, but I also set up a booth with that was branded with my logo and everything, talking about what the Passionate DJ brand is all about and that sort of thing. And then I just left like clipboards with sign-up pads, and I had my fiance and a couple of other pretty girls helping out and getting sign-ups, and I ended up collecting, I think, 60 or 70 email addresses that night, just locally, which was pretty cool. So then I, took them home and I manually added them to, I use MailChimp, but, whatever service, I just manually added them all and considered that an opt-in. And so I imagine that kind of setup could really work well in a campus environment.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure. I like that.
That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
So you got to have a party.
or cling on to somebody else's. I mean, you don't have to necessarily be the event planner here.
Right. Exactly.
There are, I'm sure, plenty of other places where college students gather and stuff around you.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it also works out because I'm lucky to work for a department that has a great deal of resources, but also works with a lot of our departments in campus. So there are tons of events going on like every single week that we coordinate.
Okay.
We just had one last week. That was a fundraiser. 49ers, so it was April 9th, 49. They were doing a donation day for students across the country, but also giving out burgers, like, and food and things like that. And we coordinated with them and helped them filter an area, so they do things like that. Yeah, so that would be a great idea for us to.
Cool. Yeah, and then you could, from there, once you're collecting email addresses, then as long as you're reasonable about what you send people, that's kind of that reminder, hey, this exists, hey, this exists.
Right.
Maybe you could set up an autoresponder sequence or something that comes out different information about the school or whatever, if it's something that students are interested in. I mean, a lot of students are like, yeah, I don't care about who Mr. Blah, blah, blah was that established the art department in 1971 or whatever.
Mm.
But if you can find something that will actually relate to that demographic, and start spitting that content to them, and then with just a subtle link every now and then, if you enjoyed what you read here, read more at this link, and then you could link to your blog directly, and that maybe try to help get that momentum going. I'm probably also not the best person to say this because I don't have one myself, but I also, it makes me think lead magnet. Like maybe you could put together like, what's the school's name? I'm sorry.
UNC Charlotte.
So UNC Charlotte. So like the ultimate survival guide to UNC Charlotte, or something like that, where you could put like common problems, questions, maps, whatever is that you notice is a common issue, and maybe address a lot of those issues and give people a reason to opt in too. And then you could use that both online and for direct in-person signups.
Great.
No, that's something you're supposed to jump right on, aren't you, David?
Yeah, well, one thing at a time, right?
You do one thing well at a time,
Yeah.
and you'll do a lot of things well over time.
I have that jack of all trades, master of none syndrome happen quite a bit. I try to take on everything at once. Nice machine in the background, by the way.
Yeah, it's actually getting sold.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. I haven't had a chance to use it at all.
Okay.
And I've had it for quite a few months, and I'm like, you know what? It's before the price drops anymore. They come out with a Mark III. I better just get rid of my Mark II. So yeah, yeah.
So, what do you think, Joe, about those suggestions? Do you have any further ideas for helping him with where he's got kind of a inherently restricted audience of how to build it and generate interest?
I think that's definitely a good way to go about doing it. It's actually isn't it part of the film department, you said?
No, it's not.
It's not.
A big part of my job is video work, but no, we're our own umbrella department.
Oh, sweet. So you answer to no one.
Pretty much, just my marketing director.
The appropriate answer for that would have been Roadhouse.
Exactly. I got you, Joe.
There's one thing that I've noticed about like getting in-person sign-ups with a physical like clipboard and a pen or pencil, and that's that you get that kind of camaraderie, crowd effect, to where if somebody sees somebody signing up for something, then somebody else wants to check it out, and then next thing you know, you've got a group of 3 friends, and well, one of them signing up, they're all signing up, and so that aspect, in some ways, it works out better than online signups if you're trying to build a list, because even though your audience typically your audience is bigger. Just doing it online, that might not necessarily be the case for you because this is a very specific audience. But yeah, you kind of get that effect where, oh, what's going on over here? There's a little bit of commotion. There's a table. This is important. So I think that I think that college students are kind of used to that sort of thing. That's when you see a lot of activism and sign up for this and sign up for this, animal shelter law, or sell up for this marijuana legalization or whatever it is. They're used to seeing this stuff all over the place, and so I think that's a natural place for you to go.
I'd agree. Just don't give away any free vacations.
That's right.
And then never stop calling.
Yeah, sell timeshares. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, they can't get out of those.
Yeah.
Just get a good lawyer to write up the document so they can't seal tight.
LegalZoom.com, man, you can get knocked out in no time.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, the other question that you had was about scheduling content, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times scheduling content can be difficult because you don't know when when is your audience around? When do they want to look at the stuff? Are you trying to utilize Twitter or any kind of social media along with that, or just?
And this question, like in that area, is more on the other side of things for what else I'm doing, like as you know, Jeff, because it's a little that question's a little easier to tell when you're on a college campus because you have 5 years scheduled out. Like you can look on the 5-year calendar. There literally is one. Here's when people are. Here's when spring break is. Here's when Christmas is doing stuff. So
yeah, I'm a little jealous. You've got a timeline.
Exactly. Yeah, you have a timeline for that. And that's easier to do on that side. And like when I'm just starting this new blog, the storytelling blog, that is definitely going to definitely utilize every social media I can. And it's just starting up, and that's where my kind of failures have been in the past, where I have a lot of great ideas and started scheduling content, but it's just when when life comes in, you get so busy, and that kind of got moved to the wayside. So. Yeah.
What's the? Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, you're good.
What's the 20-second pitch on the storytelling blog? What is that?
Storytelling blog is going to be my adventures in the year of my graduate school project. That's an immersive experience. So everything that I'm learning up into that, stories I find really good, whether that's a movie, a game, comic books, etc. Writing about that, and also interviewing storytellers. There's going to be a video component and a written component, and the written component is mostly going to be like a Sun show, interviews with people who've told stories in some capacity.
Okay, so it's actually literally about storytelling. You're not just telling stories on it, but it's about Cool.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well,
that sounds fun.
Yeah. No, he's got planned. Actually, it's been a while since I've gotten to talk to you about it, Patrick. And if it's anything like what you originally planned, it's very elaborate.
Yes. Lots of changes to that. Actually, it's changed almost completely since we talked, but in a similar vein, and figuring out how to do it. But yeah, it's fun for sure. But it's also a way for me. Blogging is a good research and scheduling stuff. One of the intentions was that as a writer primarily, I actually don't get to write the things I enjoy as much as I used to, because it's a lot of school writing and things like that. So it's a good practice for me to be like, oh, I know I'm writing this week. It gives me good practice of seeing what time I'm writing things.
Is this already launched, or is this a concept stage? Or?
It kind of launched a long time ago. Like I have the existing blog there with an interview, a couple interviews that I did last year. It's supposed to be a big thing, but fell to the wayside in favor of other projects. But everything is relaunching fully on May 1st. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious because my father actually is he's experimenting with a new podcast where he's going to do some storytelling. He's going to take old fantasy stories and I don't mean like 50 Shades of Grey fantasy, like Lord of the Rings fantasy.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, kind of tell them in his own voice, but do the voiceovers himself as well for when dialogue is happening. So kind of if you think of the old children's book on tape or Thomas the Tank Engine, which had the conductor, and he would read, and then he would do the voices, and then he would keep on narrating. I think he's doing something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So he's getting into the storytelling stuff, and I'm going to try to get him in on some of these meetings as well. He's got my microphone and pop filter and everything right now, and he's experimenting with it. So
that's awesome.
maybe you could be a resource for him. Do you have the URL?
What did you say?
Your URL, your web address?
Oh, patrickthestoryteller.com.
patrickthestoryteller.com. Okay. I'll write that. I'll type that down because I don't have paper in front of me.
So yeah, trying to figure out when to schedule content. I mean, people like try to make up whole calendars just for that, and you, at least with your with the school content, you already have a calendar of stuff when when you should release stuff. As a from a macro sense. From a micro sense, it really comes down to the social media networks that you want to convey to, whether it's like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or stuff like that. Like, there's tons of resources out there that show different you should put it on Facebook between these hours and then put it on Twitter between these hours. But with that said, if you actually have a Facebook page and you have people that like that Facebook page, you can actually go into the insights and actually see when the people who like the page are online, when the bulk of them are online. So
yeah,
it definitely helps. It definitely helps. So I don't know, like, you could use that as a starting place with the Facebook stuff, but at the same time, like with Twitter, all I have to go with is what I see, the people I follow and interact with. It really comes down to the interactions and knowing when those people are interacting, then you can interact. And like, I mean, I see it with my feed at like 11:30 at night, it goes dead. Like, instead of being a new tweet every like 30 seconds coming up top, it's like oh man, I haven't noticed my feed go up in a little while. It's been 2 minutes. Like, wow, a whole 2 minutes went by and nobody tweeted anything. The world was asleep. But yeah, so that's the way to try to figure it out. But utilizing WordPress and utilizing plugins, you can schedule that stuff. So you could write the post can come out, and then have it scheduled to come out. The tweets, and then go to Facebook at any amount of time later, depending on the plugin that you use. Are you using a plugin now for your stuff?
We're kind of just. I'm pretty much going to I'm working on looking at templates, redesigning it. It kind of just started as a simple thing, so now there aren't really many plugins right now.
Well, that's actually not a bad thing, because you don't want to slow your site down with too many plugins, especially if the site is depending how the hosting is, it can get slow very quickly.
Yeah.
As for your other stuff, your storytelling site, you're using
well, here's how that's kind of worked. Like, before that, my portfolio site was on WordPress, and the blogging site was separate. It was on WordPress as well. It's like, the multiple sites thing. And then my portfolios, as you know, my portfolio website changed to Squarespace, because I love that system, having everything all in one thing. So I am looking at, like, the existing stuff, yes, like, still is on WordPress, and I'm looking at how I'm going to go that route. Either I'm going to have a button on my portfolio, that'll just stay my portfolio site, press the button and go to that, or depends on how I'm marketing the blog. If I'm just getting out on the WordPress site and marketing that for blog posts, I'm looking into how Squarespace handles that, but for the specific, because WordPress is a blogging platform, it works really well for that. So I got to look at the mechanics of it, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be using WordPress. So.
Do you have any input on that, Dave?
Are you talking about with WordPress specifically, or as far as automating goes, the social media and all of that?
Did you hear him, Pat?
No, sorry, it went.
Oh.
I was actually asking you, Joe, what
sorry,
what you were asking for feedback on specifically.
Oh, well, I guess, like, when it comes to as far as timing for social media drops.
Sure. It's something that I haven't dug into as much as I should, but I kind of have a general idea of when when I post something when it gets the best reaction. But then again, you'll get surprised every now and then. It's just going to happen. But I'm actually not a big fan of the automation side when it comes to social. Well, at least not in the extreme sense. I do some automation, but I manually set up all my automated stuff, if that makes sense. So what I do is, like for Facebook, I go through, and this is a good way for me to experiment as well. I go through and I try to make the first thing I do is part of my strategy is I try to mix up the types of posts I'm making on Facebook all the time. I never try to post only photos or only text updates or only videos. I try to kind of put them in some kind of rotation.
Yeah.
A, because it helps me figure out what my audience engages with, and B, because I tend to think that it's beneficial for the EdgeRank algorithm, or whatever Facebook's calling it now, the algorithm that Facebook uses to throw content in front of your own people that have liked your page. I tend to think that if you mix it up a lot, then more people will see it. So that comes into play. But I go through and I will manually schedule out like a weekend or a week's worth of posts in Facebook based on, like, I'll try to put like a new article that I've written, maybe a legacy article that I've written somewhere in there, a photo, and then I put something interesting about the photo, like this is a picture of somebody's awesome studio or something like that, because I've noticed that my audience engages with that a lot, that sort of thing, and then I'll plan it all out like that. But I'm not a big fan of these like auto tweets things, and Joe will probably disagree with me, and a lot of my friends disagree with me. I just don't like it. I think it's the wrong approach to social for me. I think that I'm trying to brand myself as a human, and I think people see through that. And I'd rather them think that they're talking to me instead of just getting spammed. So that's my personal approach to automation as far as social goes. Now, as far as scheduling, I'm just experimenting a lot. I have like a general range where, like, okay, I know that like I'm in Ohio, so West Coast is 3 hours behind me, and America is my biggest audience. So I post at this time when people are getting off of work. I post at this time when people are coming in and having their first cup of coffee at 8:30 in the morning, or whatever. But I adjust them this way and that way. Like, okay, this week I'm going to try posting this at 10 a.m. Next week I'm going to try 11:30. And just so that I have kind of so I have a general test case to see what works, but B, just so that it is mixed up so that people checking it at different times will see those. Because if there's, if I have 2,000 followers and 500 of them are asleep, even when most people, it's when most people are checking. If 500 of those people are asleep, they may never see those tweets or those posts, So I'm a big fan of kind of like when dietitians tell you that it's all about mixing it up and having different parts of your diet. I just try to have variety, and I feel like that helps cover all the bases without getting too obsessive.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, obviously it's worked for you, so I can't. It's hard to hate on that. As far as the automation, I mean, I have mine. It tweets out like a little under once an hour. Old posts, old YouTube videos, old everything, as well as old episodes post out. I think once every every like 4 hours, it posts out an old episode. But in between that, I'm sorry.
Okay. Go ahead. That makes more sense on Twitter than any other platform.
Exactly. Yeah.
That is true. Though with the Facebook page, I've actually recently set up my Facebook page to take those tweets in. So it's taking those tweets in, and it's putting them on Facebook as well, but not from my personal account though, from the page. Yeah. And the main reason so you can see. Huh?
I was just saying, I think that harms your rankings because Facebook penalizes you for posting too much. So it might be, even though you're getting more posts, you might be getting more posts that are getting seen by 10 people instead of 1 or 2 that are being seen by 100 or 200 people. You know what I mean?
It's true. Maybe I should turn it off for like a week and just see what happens. See if my views go down. Because I mean, right now I think I'm viewed around like 5,500 people in the last. Does that go by week? It's got to be week. Or no, maybe it's maybe it's month. Let's see.
I think you can adjust what you're doing as far as the insights go.
Well, I'm just saying, like, when you first go to Facebook.com. Okay, so, like, yeah, so this week my posts have only reached, like, 3,200. Now, with that said, in the previous 2 weeks, I had my book launch. So people were sharing that and doing a lot more with that. In fact, I think, if I recall correctly, the post reach was a lot more. Let me see here. It must have been a lot more, because if I'm getting 3,300 and I'm just posting once an hour, then it must have been quite a bit more. Let's see, how do I post reach? Oh, here we go. So, oh wait, was that by how long was that? Oh, that was just this week was 3,200.
Okay.
But in previous weeks, I was reaching quite a bit higher than that. With one day, I was reaching. I'm not quite sure how to read this in a because it's not giving me like an output to read off to you, which kind of stinks.
I mean, that just off the top of my head, that hearing that number doesn't sound bad to me.
No, that doesn't sound bad to you? Even just the post reach of like 3,200 just this week, when I really haven't had any. It's just like reposting old posts.
Yeah, let me see what mine looks like. My Chrome locked up. I had to open a different browser to get into this. I know. Give me a second here. Mine. Would you just click on your page?
I just went to. I didn't even click on the page. If you just go to the home from your whatchamacallit.
Okay, yeah, this week. So my post reach this week was 1,500-ish, but I also haven't hardly posted anything. That's kind of my own fault. Does it show previous weeks?
If you click on it, like, you'll see what I mean. Like, you get this. Which actually, I think that's pretty low for you, because
It is.
Because you had almost 2,200 likes on your Facebook page.
Yeah, well, I haven't really been on my game lately. I've had like a couple of huge to-do lists that are somewhat unrelated to the blog that I've been working on cranking out the past couple of weeks. So I've kind of neglected it a little bit.
See, I was going.
I have a better example for you.
I was going towards your approach as well, and I try to find the balance. As like I said, I only post like out once an hour, but the question is don't you feel like what you're writing is? I mean, you're mostly trying to write evergreen content anyway.
Generally.
So don't you feel, and this is the idea that came to me, or was presented to me, was, don't you feel like your stuff is worth being shared? Isn't it worth being shared out with the world?
Sure, absolutely, but I'm not trying to suggest that people shouldn't see it. I'm trying to suggest that I feel like going overboard with that harms you in the long run, especially on Facebook, as far as how many people actually see it. Like I said, your numbers didn't sound crazy to me, but I haven't really done a lot of digging into my Facebook insights, and now I can't even get the thing to come up.
No, hold on. Let me share my screen here, so everybody can see this. So if you start at the top, right? These are all the posts. You can see the reaches right here and the engagement. So while I haven't had a whole lot of engagement, but I want to check this out, because it's actually posting. It looks like it's randomly selecting anywhere under an hour, because sometimes it's less than a half hour, and then sometimes it's more. Like you see here from like 6:26 to 7-Eleven is more than half hour. That's like 40-some minutes. So I want to find out what the heck is going on there, why it's varying it up like that so much.
So see, we have a different approach here because you're posting like 24 times in a day, and you're getting like 2 or 5 people see each one, and I'm posting maybe twice a day, but then I have a couple hundred people maybe that will see those. So I guess it's just a different way, 2 different ways to skin a cat. But the thing that I like about mine is that it helps me with engagement because first of all, I'm posting with intent usually, so I might post something that's relevant to what's happening in the DJ world right now, and then people will respond to it, and then I can get in and reply to it, and so it kind of builds the community aspect of it when more people are seeing fewer posts. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, I agree that there's a different way of looking at it. But look, check this out. Are you seeing this?
Mm-hmm.
Because one person clicked on the link, 61 people saw it. Nobody liked it, but 61 people saw it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Versus every other one that nobody clicked on. So let's see, what's this one look like? See, this had one post, one person clicked on it, and it reached 11 people.
The other thing about this is, Facebook and Google are kind of 2 sides of the same coin when it comes to this. Like, their algorithms are continually changing. We're never going to be able to keep up with it and know exactly what the right thing to do is, which is kind of where my point about variety comes in.
Right.
If you're mixing it up a little bit and don't have all your eggs in one basket, that's definitely helpful. As opposed to relying on one particular thing. Unless you want to get into paid advertising, then you can kind of do it how you want.
What I would say, though, is, like with Twitter, I try to interact a lot with people because I don't want it to just be about, like, my post going out once an hour. But at the same time, it's like, I'm only one person. I don't have a team of people sitting around, hitting up the social webs over and over and over and over again all day long,
Right.
and interacting with people that aren't even in my circle.
Sure. I think that. So I'm a big fan of. Patrick, do you keep up with like internet marketing stuff at all? Like, do you follow any blogs or podcasts in that realm?
Not necessarily, but I should. But I should.
Well, I do. I can definitely send you some recommendations. But there's this guy. His name is Gary Vaynerchuk, and he's really brash and foul-mouthed and in your face, and he's a freaking genius when it comes to this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a lot about promoting on social from him because I no longer think of social media as distribution, and so many people do, and I think that's part of the problem. I feel like social is a place to build your audience and to interact with them. So I think, for me personally, the wrong approach is to just post article links constantly. So that's why I try to mix it up. I'll here's a photo of Richie Houghton's awesome studio, check it out, and then just post it for its own sake. And that gets engagement, that gets people talking, it gets likes, it gets shares. And then at that point, the more people that are engaging with those cool posts, the more people will see the next one I make. So he writes this book, it's called Jab, 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 Right Hook, and that's the basis behind it is give, ask, give, ask, instead of just check out my page, check out my article, check out my article, check out my article. I don't feel that it should be that distribution channel. I feel like it should be a place for you to interact and build your audience with the occasional, hey, here's how you can reward me, you know what I mean? Instead of, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, it's, let me help you with this, check this out. And you do that enough times, and then they're more willing to occasionally check out what you have to say because you're building a social proof and you're building trust with them.
Absolutely. That's something I think we do a good job of on our end. in parking, especially in the social sphere, especially with Twitter, because a lot of people have questions about parking, but they wonder why they need certain information. We use it more like, especially an engagement outlet. If people have questions, we can reach out to them directly, and how many students can we help do things.
Yeah.
So I completely agree with you. I think it's definitely it's the best. It's really one of the only ways for engagement. For sure, it's the best way right now to do that. So.
Yeah, that's the way I view it. I it's where my audience is, and so I should interact with them. If I want their attention, I should help them, And so, rather than just look at me, it's here's this, here's this, here's this. Maybe you want to check me out now. Here's this, etc.
Yeah, that's a great part about variety, because if you see that same article over and over and over again, if you've clicked on it, or if you've just seen it 1,000 times, if you've liked the page, you're not going to click on it because you're kind of numb, where you're just scrolling.
Yeah.
You pass and you've seen it, so it becomes muscle memory when you're going through stuff. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I'd agree with all that. I mean, I only just recently started doing that on Facebook to see how it would go. With Twitter, I mean, Twitter's a little bit different of a game because tweets only last 3 minutes. I mean, I just told you, like, it was 11:30 at night. I see my Twitter feed doesn't update every 10 seconds. It updates every like 2-3 minutes.
Right.
And that's a big difference.
It's a big difference thing. Yeah, and I like your point, Joe, with the person. Like that's what I do a lot of that's how we met. I do working through Twitter. And asking people questions and seeing like updates about what's going on with certain things. Whereas like Facebook, I view that kind of like a newspaper outlet-ish thing in my personal perspective, where I do see a lot of those articles, like, and I do see a lot of like different variety of things. It's more like an organizational thing to me, like a larger group or like a brand kind of thing. In Twitter, I see that personal nature, and they're two completely different games. They share some similarities, but it can be a challenge to go in between both.
But Twitter's like being at a big party or social gathering. Like anybody who sees or hears it, like a very comfortable one where you walk in and you hear somebody talking about, oh, I know something about this, and then you can chime in. And Facebook is a lot different beast, and I think that Joe's approach makes a lot. And Joe, I'm not trying to criticize your methods. I'm just explaining my own.
Not at all, man.
I think that your approach makes a lot more sense for Twitter than it does for Facebook, personally. But if it's, that's the thing. It's what works for me might not work for Joe, and so it's one of those things you kind of got to figure it out anyway. You can take bits of knowledge from me, bits of knowledge from Joe, and bits of knowledge from such and such blog or podcast, but it's all going to come down to just trying stuff and figuring out what works. That's how we've all been doing it.
That's true. All trying to be the next everybody. That's interesting.
If I could blog like Seth Godin, I would do it, but his style is different than mine,
So, was there any other questions or things that you guys had going on that you were thinking about?
Not off the top of my head.
No, I've gotten so much out of this already. It's a great place.
So, Patrick, is this your first hangout with Joe?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
You should definitely keep on joining them. They're really helpful. I've been trying to jump in whenever I can, and there's always a lot of good info about like this spouted out. So definitely come back.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, David.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate that. Wow, I can't believe that happened. All right. So anyway, I guess we'll wrap up now. I mean, it's been about an hour, and the next one, we'll probably try to do something a little bit later for the next one. Let's see. When is the next? The next Let's Talk is. It's not jumping out at me. I have too much on my calendar. The next event is Oh, you know what? Because I don't have it on my calendar. Oh. Wait. Yeah, that's going to be a problem. The next event is at 8 o'clock on Monday, April 20th. So that's Let's Talk Podcasting Tips, 8 o'clock at night Eastern. And then I'm going to reschedule this one for probably a week later. Maybe a little bit, maybe in the afternoon, like the April 27th in the afternoon. Like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, David, would you just like to plug your stuff, and then Patrick, plug your stuff?
Sure. Once again, I'm David Michael from the Passionate DJ podcast and blog at passionatedj.com. Basically about marketing yourself and becoming better DJs through passion and purpose, and just becoming better DJs. And we focus a lot on the psychology of the dance floor and that sort of thing, and trying to actually be better DJ, not from a technical perspective, but from a purpose, from an approach perspective of how you handle yourself as a DJ. It's basically my brand.
And I'm Patrick Wisniewski again, patrickthestoryteller.com. Go there and you can see a lot of the work I've done. I write in several areas, currently I'm a grad student, and I also am a filmmaker, so you can see my films there, galleries, information about projects I've worked on. So stay tuned.
He's got a lot going on. So my stuff, joepardo.net. You can find out all my projects. Podcast Mid-Atlantic. There's a conference we're having here right outside of Philadelphia, September 12th. If you're interested in podcasting or want to just have a good time, tickets are really cheap, $35. Registration's up, podcastmidatlantic.com. My book is out. It's an audio book. It's a physical book. It's a Kindle book. It's $1 for Kindle, $4 for the audio book, $25 for the physical. Go Kindle.
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And you can find out all my my Podcast Dreamers podcast is howtodream.co. Join us next on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern for the next Let's Talk podcasting tips. Till then, thanks for joining us, guys.
Take care. Nice to meet you, Patrick.